Welcome everyone in another episode of the Devrel roundtable, of course, by Daily Dev. We have amazing guests today. So first of all, let's do a quick sound check and then we can start talking about Devrel, the good and the bad parts. Okay. Sound check. Who are you all there?
Test.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Everyone is here. Nimrod, how are you?
All good. Pleasure to be here, and thank you everyone for joining.
Perfect. So if I'm not wrong, this should be the third episode, and so let's call it the February episode. And then we are doing these events because we want to talk about developer relations. We want to have people who have direct experience in this area. Today we have really special guests, so let's start doing the introductions and presentations. So I would like to start with Sabrina. Sabrina, please introduce yourself. I really love your background.
Thank you so much, Fran. Absolute pleasure to be here, and what a cool intro you guys have. Absolutely amazed. I really admire everybody here also, so it's really a pleasure to be here with you guys. And yeah, I currently I'm working as a developer advocate at Quadrant, which is a vector database. I think you guys have heard about this AI thing going on out there. And I'm doing Devrel for about, 3.5 years now? It's been a journey. Excited to chat with you guys about that. Based in Brazil, northeast part, very warm here. And yeah, love to get started with the chat. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, and amazing hoodie. I really like that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's go with Dilmer. So Dilmer, I think you are kind of new in this role, but you have been creating content for so long, and that's super top quality videos. I always admired him for many years. So Dilmer, it's a pleasure to have you here, and please introduce yourself. I want you to say where you work for.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here, Francesco, and then Sabrina and everybody in the call. I admire a lot of you as well. I'm new to this role, but like Francesco said, I've been creating content for I think at least a decade, and sharing things as I learn with different devices and technologies, and sharing social media, and then build few games and apps, and then. Most recently, I just been working as a developer advocate for Meta. So I have a lot of experience that I can share today, but I also want to learn a lot from the panel that is here, which there's a lot of knowledge. 3.5 years, Sabrina, that's pretty impressive. So so excited to be here.
Longer than Devrel itself, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and I knew some behind the scenes because Dilmer made some spoiler, like I'm about to start a new role, but he didn't say the name of the company. When I saw Meta, I said, okay, so this guy is perfect for this role because he has been working with all VR. I don't know how many VRs he has, probably hundreds.
Yeah, there's a Quest there, a couple of Quests, the Vision Pro. Too much technology. I think I enjoy it too much.
Yeah, I really can say that you really love that. So we have one more person to introduce, a real dear friend. We've been connected since I think 2020, so many years. So Dennis Ivy, you know everything about him. Is past. We also met last year at Render ATL in Atlanta. So we have also a compliment by Atarva. Dennis, your setup is so good. It's almost making me jealous, or maybe it's making him jealous. Dennis, please introduce yourself so then we can start talking about all the cool stuff.
I was hoping when you said a good friend, you were going to refer to me, because if you went to Nimrod, then that would be bad. But here I am taking the compliment. So developer advocate at Appwrite. I've been at this role for about a year and 4 months now, I think, maybe a little bit more. But previously, I've been a developer advocate at other companies before. My last role was at a company called Agora for 2 years. And I kind of naturally fit into this role from content creation, from doing YouTube years before that, which is where I met Francesco in 2020 when he first started his Interviewing 100 Developers series. So that's where we got connected originally. But yeah, the role has just been kind of a natural fit. It has its pros and cons, which I'm excited to chat about. But that's kind of where I'm at. Mostly educational content on YouTube, video form. I know that comes in the form of documentation sometimes, articles, but mainly on video, which explains the background, which I'm surprised I don't really get compliments on it. But I think the lights are like a cheap hack. Like you just put some lights in and it looks cool. It's pretty plain. It's not like Sabrina's or Nimrod's.
Exactly. We are spoiling the secrets, just some cool RGBs and everything changes. Perfect. So I would like also Nimrod to introduce himself, because before letting him speak, and we are officially now the co-host of this series, because it started as something random, but then now this is the 3rd episode and you joined all 3 of them, so you are now officially a full-time co-host until you want. So Nimrod, please introduce yourself, and then let's start with this cool episode.
Awesome. So nice to meet you, everyone, and I'm very, very happy to be here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Daily.dev. For those of you who haven't heard about us yet, we are a professional network for developers, helping around 1 million developers almost every day stay up to date on everything that's happening in tech, and also to be part in various communities called squads, where you can come in and engage and meet like-minded developers. Just a note about my background: this is not me, this is my wife. It's always happy to get credit for things like that, but definitely I'm not the person with such a strong aesthetic talent. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. And just to kind of like kickstart things, maybe to bundle 2 questions together and get the discussion going. So maybe start with sharing your favorite part of doing Devrel, and maybe a success story, something practical, something that people can relate to and can be inspired from.
Sure, I can go in. So this was like right before joining Meta. I was invited to go to AWE, and AWE is the Augmented Reality World Expo, and there's a lot of people from augmented reality, virtual reality, AI. So there's like a combination, and also a lot of web developers in there. So I was sitting in the front row, and there were 2 students that were giving a presentation about how they were using body tracking technology to basically find out, if somebody had different symptoms, like if they were, sick, or they would basically analyze the body based on that data. So I was sitting down at front row, and the presenters kept on looking at me, and I'm like, oh, this is really strange. So when I left the presentation, the impact they had was, I made a video a long time ago, 2 videos a long time ago. So talk about content creation, right? Like we create content and sometimes we take it for granted, but the videos that I created a while back were the source of the presentation. So they use some of that technology, some of the GitHub repo that I posted to do the project that we're working on. And it's not only that they use the GitHub repo, but I met him at MIT this last event, and they were there. So that created a relationship. It created I think a big impact in my career, like thinking about how content, how code, how sharing, could it really impact the career of people around the world, because I didn't even imagine that would have happened.
That's
I
so
love
awesome.
this story.
I love it. I love the story. Kind of like when your work meets you in real life, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised because I'm sure because Dilmer makes really amazing videos. So I'm not surprised by this, but it's nice to know because sometimes we create videos and we don't know. We have no idea what this who is watching those.
Francesco, you remember
Yes.
we had a similar moment. We had a company offsite in London, and it was just in like a random WeWork somewhere in town, and we were going up the elevator to one of the rooms that we rented, and there was a couple of guys there, and they saw like one of our team members wearing a Daily Dev t-shirt, and they said, "Oh, Daily Dev is a really cool product. Like, are you using it too?" And they said, "We're actually building it," and it was like a moment, where you see someone who really likes your product in real life. That's definitely something goes beyond just the numbers, because on a daily basis you look at all sorts of like different analytics tools and things, and the numbers don't really speak as loud as a real human that says, "I love what you're doing."
I love that. Maybe I can jump in next. And just like mixing in, because it's about like the good parts and also like a success story, and I feel like those two are a little bit correlated in my part, and it's really also about a little bit of the recognition that you get from the role, like because you have your face and your name in so many places. You get a lot more opportunities, like being here with you guys and talking about this, right? And I think a cool thing that happened to me recently is that I was asked to give a presentation in my high school. And it's always great when we get to come back to the places where we come from, right? To give these presentations. And that was pretty cool. And also like big events in my state that has like 20,000 developers attending, which is pretty cool too. So I feel like because we are all over the place, and this can also be a bad thing if we want to get into that later, but because we are all over the place, then a lot more people see us. We get to help a lot of people also, like Dilmer said, and it's also very amazing to see the impact that we can have directly within those people. So yeah.
I'm gonna just bank on what both of you all said. And for me, like, we're working in one of the coolest spaces like in the world. Like, I know it's such a cliche in tech to say, "Oh, we're making the world a better place," or at least we're changing the world. I don't know if we're making it better, but we're making an impact just as far as like the tech industry that affects everybody. Like, this is going to be the future, and we not only get to be a part of that as DevRels, we get to be, what Sabrina said, the front facing of that. Like, we're working on the tech that's making that impact. And for me, like, personally, the public recognition, I weirdly don't care for that. Like, there's some people that just, they would like some fame out of it or whatever they get. For me, it's the affirmation that what I'm doing is actually making an impact. And I've had both of those scenarios too, where somebody walks up to me and says that, and it's the idea that whatever I'm working on, somebody who starts the next billion-dollar company may have had some inspiration from me along the way. They can be in college at this point or in high school, and then I'm one of those people that led them to that step. And Devrel, in this case, is educating them in something or just creating content in general. So to have that impact, like, that's one of our human needs, is to be able to leave something behind like that. And we kind of get to be at the forefront. So I think that's pretty exciting. The other part, as far as like my custom answer for me, is I've also been in tech for, I think, about 10 years now, maybe 11. And I went that route of building my own product and working within one specific stack for just years and developing, and you kind of like ignore everything else that's going on around you. And it got to a point where once I developed my product and eventually sold it, I wanted to know what else was out there. And the thing that sucks about this is I can't go learn a bunch of tech if I'm not profiting off of it. Like, I still need to, feed my family. I need some kind of income. And what Devrel kind of allowed me to do was, it allowed me to tinker in these tools that I don't need to know like super in depth. Mm-hmm. I can know a little bit of some kind of AI model that I'm working with, and then I can jump into some VR stuff and whatever kind of fits into the scope of what I'm working on as a Devrel. I know in some cases it's limited, but I get to try all these things and kind of not just have an impact in all these different areas, but also work with these tools. And then with my ADHD brain, I get to leave it when I'm done with it and move on to something else. Mm-hmm. Where developing a single product for years and years, that's your sole focus, and you kind of forget what else is going on in the world. So I feel like I get the best of both worlds of diving into tech, but being able to leave it when things get boring.
I don't know what you're talking about when you say that things gets boring in tech.
We're working on one product.
Get it. No,
Sometimes you get sick of looking at your own code. I've done that where it's like, I don't even want to touch this code base anymore.
I'm gonna say that I am very similar to you, Dennis. I used to work as a full stack developer. Well, first as a junior developer, and I was always like doing ASP.NET, C#, and it was great, right? But then until I started playing around with Unity, I started playing around with Vue and React and some of those things that you're like, this is really cool. You can do that. So then your mind starts like getting all these ideas.
Right.
And it just becomes like, I think I get motivated by just testing different technology. At the same time, building the core technology like that, like C# for me, it's like my go-to. I love C#. So I always want to make sure that I keep that. But there's all these things that I'm super curious about that it keeps me motivated to keep working on it every single day. Otherwise, I think I would just get bored, like if I just do one thing.
Yeah, you get to scratch that itch, and you also get to get paid for it. Like if I want to, like I started learning Go the other day, like for no reason, simply just because it looked interesting and I hear people talking about it. I will probably never make a penny off of it on my own. Probably will never use it. Not anything against it, but it's just my curiosity allowed me to go there, and I can justify it saying, okay, I can see how I can, build a Go tutorial or write some Go documentation in Appwrite. So I kind of use that as an excuse to go learn something and then leave it. Yeah, so you get to scratch that itch, and it's really fun.
I love that as well. And I feel like this is one of the biggest motivators for me in Devrel, just being able to learn so many different things. But I also think this also fits well into the bad part. And maybe we can like use this as a segue, because what I also feel is that because there's so many things to do, and we're always learning so many things, also there's no time to get deep into any of those. So we end up with most of these technologies that we go through very quickly with very shallow knowledge. And it's sometimes hard for us to keep an in-depth knowledge of a technology and also producing lots of content around it. So for me, that is a good thing, but is also a bad thing in a certain way.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sabrina, deeply. Especially before joining Meta and working. So I would spend, so I did a series on networking on that netcode with multiplayer. And a lot of that, it's very intense. Like you really need to understand multiplayer networking, web services, web sockets. And the hard part about that is like you want to produce good content, like great content. Like it's complicated, but you still want to produce great content, but you don't have as much time anymore as you had before. So I think those are like it was really hard not to spend too much time in the code, and now I need to also talk about it. So that was one of the difficult parts for me is, well, it's okay. I'm gonna be okay with just producing less content. Maybe I'll just do one video that month, but I'm going to produce a very good piece of content. So that to me has been a big challenge, is trying to keep the quality and the depth of the stuff that I did in the past, and then now going into Devrel, and you still need to be the face, but there's strategy around it. You need to talk to people, you need to go to events, so that takes you away from some of these other things that you want to also do. So that's it's always not all beautiful. It's amazing. You have a lot of opportunities, but there's also a lot of things that you're not going to be able to do as much anymore. But yeah.
It's really such a hard thing to balance, because you can like stare at your code for 1 month and you completely understand it, and you had the time to know every edge of it, and you can quickly write an article or a video about it. But if you have like 1 week to do the whole thing, then it's a different scenario for sure.
Yes, I know what you're talking about, Dilmer, because I made my university thesis about the multiplayer system in Unity. So it has been a tough months. But yes,
I met this like other founder about a week back, and I'm not going to name who that is, although some of you may know him. And he asked me like frankly, how many Devrels do you think are secretly just want to be full-time content creators? And I said, oh, we have an event next week, so I'm going to ask that question. So here it goes. How many of you actually want, if you could, like, would you go and become full-time content creators just doing that for your own fun, not necessarily just for business?
I can start with that because I've done that. I was a full-time content creator for 2 years. It's weird because it kind of goes based off of the last question where it's like the good and bad. I would say at this point, no. Like if it was like what truly would make me happy, it would be diving into the code. Like I think I'm much happier being alone and quiet and figuring stuff out and sharing a little bit of it. Like I think it's fun, but it's not something I would want to do again forever. Like it's that mix where we get to try new things, but then we don't get to dive into something too far. As a content creator, you're never going to really know something specific unless you niche down. Like if you can successfully do that, which it's very difficult to do, like let's say you just go all in on VR and that's all your content is about, then sure, you can kind of figure that out. But in my case, from my experience, I've had to jump around in many cases all over the place. And you're constantly living from a place of anxiety in the sense of there's new content. Like for me, it's the AI stuff. I think it's very exciting, but as a content creator, it kills me because I'm so focused on other stuff. And yet that's what's getting all the hype. So you kind of feel like a sellout sometimes chasing the content. And the last thing I want to do is go make AI content just for the sake of making content. But that's how the game is played. It's like when you look at the news media, they're all talking about the same thing because that's the hot topic. If it's like politics or whatever it is, simply because that's what's going to pull the views. So you become a slave to your viewers, which I'm not a fan of. I would rather just do things because I want to do them. So there's a lot of bad in being a full-time content creator, I would say, from my experience.
Yeah, I can add to that too. I feel just like you, man. I did it for 1 year. So I quit my job. I was working as a full-time full stack developer, doing back-end, front-end, mobile development, all that. Like I got a depth of knowledge. Like I was just like in the code, like Sabrina says so much, and spending so much time on re-architecture of services, Azure, AWS. And then I quit and I'm like, oh yeah, I have, at the time I had a contract with Meta, Magic Leap, doing a video series. Money was just like right there. Dilmer, create all the content that you want. So I'm like, yeah, I don't have to worry much about money. I'll just quit my job and then focus. So at the beginning, it was great. Like it was amazing to create content. And I mean, people will say, oh, you're a full-time YouTuber. That's amazing. Like kids. And it's like, it's what you think like is the dream, right? Like you made it. You're working on your own office and your own time. You can go exercise, but it becomes really depressing sometimes because it's just you, right? Like you have to motivate yourself. Where I was working with a team, large team, cross teams, and there were a lot of incentives in there where, you have like one-on-one calls, you're talking to customers. So it's like, it's a completely different world. Then you get into, okay, I'm in this room just working every day. And yeah, the first 3 to 6 months, I grew dramatically. I produced amazing content, well, what I think amazing, but I produced what I think was better than what I did before. But it was really hard after the 6 months to keep staying motivated. And some of the contracts went down, so I didn't really want to keep chasing contracts. So then you have to become a salesperson, which I hate to be a salesperson. I'm a developer. So you have to start talking to companies, and it becomes this hobby that you had for so many years becomes a job. And it's you growing your company, and that just it lost a fan of me. So I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? Well, I want to go back to development, get a job. I'm a developer advocate, so working with developers, working with people. So I think that's the best of both worlds, because then you get to work with products, you get to work with engineers, and you get to work with the community and people that that really fills you up. That really, if you want to make a change, you want to work with people. And if you can make it work with YouTube, I think some people can. In my experience as a developer, I'd rather do this than just doing the full-time content creator.
Yeah, 100%. I'm 100% there also with Dilmer.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you said. So from my perspective, I did the full-time content creator thing, and for me, things actually turned out well as far as like financially. Like I was making what I'm making now. Like I actually left a lot of money on the table by going to a job. So I never had to struggle as far as like getting contracts. In my case, it was selling courses, but I felt what you felt as far as the independence, which was a negative thing for me. I have so much curiosity around the industry to where I wanted to talk to other people. I wanted to, as much as I hate meetings, I like the idea of meeting with other developers and having somebody that has way more experience than me and learning from them. Like when I went to the first company that I went to after full-time content creation, I had somebody above me that was 25 years experience in the VR space plus WebRTC space. And the breadth of knowledge that I got was ridiculous. Like there's no college that I can go to get that information from him. And he was one-on-one directing me and answering questions. That was what I was craving. And that kind of scratched that itch. So for me, like going back to it, it feels crazy to go to a job because I do miss certain parts of that complete independence. But it was that big of a deal for me to work with other developers. And I think we inherently have that. There's some developers that go solo, but I think if you're curious, you're going to need to rub elbows with other people. Sorry, Sabrina, I didn't want to jump on your.
No, you guys completely. Yeah, this is completely correct. I feel like there's so much knowledge in being, especially in a startup, which is like early stage startup. You're kind of doing so many things, and you're learning not only the product, you're learning marketing, SEO, you're learning sales, you're learning products, you're learning so many things that I feel like it's kind of essential knowledge for you to, I don't know, become a good professional in many aspects, and in just having that knowledge within the industry. But also, I think just adding something that I'm not passionate about, like creating the content itself. I'm passionate about like creating the application that I'm probably going to be showing. So I get much more hype from developing an app and seeing it working. And then I'll talk about it and it's nice. But just creating, I feel like is the main part that is, if I had to pick being a content creator or just a creator that develops these cool applications, I would pick the second one. But I feel like content creation is probably, just to answer Atharva here that said creating content is a very difficult job. Many don't realize that because they only see the good numbers. That's 100% true. Like creating content is so hard. It's not like being a full-time content creator is not going to be just like, okay, I'm just going to record a video and then just like live my life happily ever after. There's so much that goes into it. And so many hours that I feel like is definitely one of the most difficult parts of the job.
Yes, and usually if you're not into videos, you have no idea how much does it take to get there. For example, when I see, I don't know, the Dilmer videos, since I make videos, I can feel how much he worked behind that. But sometimes it's hard if you're not into that field. So yes, thank you so much. For me, content creation and Devrel, they go in the same direction at least. So for example, if you go full stack and Devrel or full stack and content creation, you're gonna like split yourself like I did in the past. Similar story to Dilmer. So at some point I had to make a choice. So I quit the full-time full stack developer job. Content creation and Devrel, I think I know many people who they work on full content creators, then they got to Devrel, then back to content creation. So it seems that they are two ways that are similar, I would say. Yes, so we are already 30 minutes in this event. So I want to talk about some bad parts now. And there was a quick question by Daphna. So I want to start picking the questions. I love this one. So is Devrel for everyone, or like, do you think that someone should not be a Devrel? Let's start with the spicy questions. Let's see if you can answer these, and if you have anyone wants to start or be the first gatekeeper.
It's hard to look someone
and go in this direction, but yeah, go ahead.
It's hard to look someone in there. Oh, no. What was that, Nimrod? I didn't get that.
Go on.
If you're an asshole, definitely don't be a Devrel. That's my short answer. Yeah, Sabrina, go ahead. Give the more like deep thesis behind who should be a Devrel.
I was just gonna say it's hard to look someone in the face and say you should not be a Devrel. You know, how do you say that? It's kind of like looking someone in the face and saying, "Hey, you should not be a doctor." Like, I don't know. Maybe that person can have something within them that says, "Hey, maybe this is a field that I want to go into." And most people do. Most people, when I tell them what I do, they look at me and say, "Hey, I could never do that." You know, because of so many different things I think that goes into the job. So I feel like if it's an option that you consider, if it's something that you think it's cool, that's already a very positive sign that maybe you can do DevRel, maybe DevRel is for you. But I don't know. I don't think there is a piece of quality or I don't know, something about you that would make you a bad DevRel besides being an asshole, like Nimrod said.
So, oh, go ahead, Dilmer.
I was gonna say thank you, Dennis. I was gonna say, like, thinking like this is maybe a little bit segue, but I'll bring it back in. When we start as developers, people make good money, right? Like you get as a junior developer, and then the salaries are great. So as I was getting into the field of becoming a developer, a lot of people around me, they're like, "Oh, wait, I want to get into development." There were real estate agents. Some people were like doing nursing. Like everybody wanted to get in because of the money. And the money is good, right? Like we all need money. We need money to survive. We need to pay bills. We need to do all that. But if that's your ultimate goal for being a DevRel or getting into engineering, that's like a really bad place to be because you're not gonna like it. I would say, like, if you like experimenting, if you like talking to people, even if you're like not super comfortable talking to people, but you can share content and you can share knowledge, and that's something that you can work through it. I think, that's where I think if it's just the money, just don't do it. But if it's more than the money, it's good. But then you're also excited about playing with technology, talking to people, working with multiple teams and things like that, advocating, then absolutely do it.
And probably I feel like something that a lot of great DevRels that I've met have in common is that they were doing like the job before they were a DevRel. They were already like in forums, doing blogs, videos, helping people, this sort of stuff. So it's kind of something that comes naturally to some people, I feel. If you have like that little spark, that's a good sign.
Yeah, I for me, I have a more of a hot take on this, and I can be like, I'm not afraid to tell someone that they shouldn't be, like, not in the sense of like, I'm not going to insult somebody and criticize them to their face, but I do believe there's a very fine line between who can do this. Now, the characteristics I think may be a little bit more interesting as far as the topic goes, but there's certain personalities that just can't handle it. Like it's a really tough thing, and if you don't have if you're not naturally doing this already before, if you're not in forums, if you're not supporting people, that's something that you can maybe grow into. But there's personality types that just do not like to do that. Like Brad Traversy, for example, from Traversy Media. He's a great content creator, great educator. I talk to him all the time. He hates getting on calls with me even. Like he does not like to spend time chatting with other people. He would be the worst DevRel in the world. And I mean that with all respect to Brad. He would gladly accept that title. So there's certain personality types that are just not a good fit. And it's difficult enough of a job. To me, I see it as, I'm not comparing ourselves to like professional football players, but it's the equivalent of saying, can everyone be a professional football player, or should they be? Well, there's some people that are just going to be better, and I can look at a good percentage of the population and say it's that tough of a job to where you might not fit for it. You might not be a fit. The hot take that I have is that a lot of developers like the good parts of DevRel, which one is money, but the other one is travel. It's the public image that you can create. But I see a lot of new developers that are not actually really developers yet. Like they may be in their first year or two as being a developer. Maybe they're not that experienced and they want to dive headfirst into DevRel. That can work in some areas. Maybe if you're just in the community builder aspect, you're just really good with people. Like Jason Torres from Torque, I believe now. He's a community builder on their team, and he's just perfect for that role because he doesn't have to get too technical and he just talks to people. That's a fit. But as a developer or as a developer advocate, you're going to have to know a lot or a little about a lot of different things. And you're going to have to be really good at switching tasks. So imagine getting a developer that just jumped into their first tech stack and is trying to get familiar with the industry, now having to switch between different frameworks and then go talk to people and have to really, you know, come off as a professional. That's a very tough thing to do. So I don't like it when I see a lot of new developers that have never gained experience as far as being a developer themselves, trying to go into dev advocacy because it looks sexy. Like, I think that's a flawed system. I think developer advocates are the other way around. They're the really good developers that happen to, you know, kind of want to migrate into the community building thing versus new developers that think this looks fun. Yeah, I just see that a lot, and I don't, maybe isn't directly on point with the question, but I can criticize that pretty well because I've interviewed a lot of developer advocates, and a lot of times we'll, you know, be in that conversation, and I'll usually kind of poke around. Like, I want to know, is someone, you know, what tech stacks do you work with? What do you do as far as your side projects? And they're completely new to it. And when I'm hiring for Appwrite, it's like, well, you're going to have to do a lot of that right now. So how do you expect to do that if you're not already doing it, or you're not really experienced in one area?
Yeah, Dennis, I relate to that a lot. So one of the things that I did when joining as a Devrel was making sure, because one, I don't want to be just the one talking about tech that I don't know. So one of the expectations that I set was that a big percentage of my time, 30% of my time, was going to be doing R&D. So I don't want to show up to an event and then just talk theory and be another business guy. Or like a marketing guy. That I don't want to be a marketing guy. So I think, like, if you're thinking about being a Devrel, just know that you do need dev knowledge. You do need to do research. You do need to be spending a lot of time in the technology. Otherwise, people really, in my experience, people won't really take you seriously. And that's not just me. Like, I go to a conference and I see other people that I'm not gonna call in names, but the way the conversations go between the person that has that knowledge versus the person that is just doing marketing, it's like completely different. Like, the way that they listen to you, they pay attention. It's like you gain so much respect. Like, you can make things happen pretty quickly, and even internally, like in your own company, like you're doing developer advocacy, you also know about products, about the technology. You're going to be able to move the needle a lot more than just getting into the job just because it's cool and then you know the theory.
Yeah, I had an experience. I guess I don't want to go into too much detail, but I had a case where our company was integrating with a product at LinkedIn, and I'm talking to LinkedIn engineers, and I had to understand their architecture. Imagine a new developer who doesn't, you know, barely knows, like, they just learned a couple of programming languages and frameworks, now having to talk to an engineer from LinkedIn or Clubhouse, whatever the example was, because I've had a lot of these situations, and they're asking you tough questions. So I have to know my product very well. Then I have to understand what they're doing. And doesn't mean I have to fully get their stuff, but it means I need to be able to, like, look at the architecture and, you know, figure it out in a short amount of time and carry on an intelligent conversation. For me as a developer, there's nothing more insulting than talking to a tech sales rep, because they'll kind of pat your shoulder and smile and tell you how great things are. But it's like, I know you don't know what you're talking about, and that's fine. I'm not trying to insult you, but I don't want to be talked to like a kid when I really know my product, and you're just going to give me the good side and, you know, the stuff that engineers have relayed to you. Like, I find it very insulting. That's why technical marketing being a whole different topic, that's why I think it's a really important thing. And Devrel, in a sense, is a form of marketing, but we kind of bridge that gap, actually. But yeah, the whole inexperienced engineer, like, it could really kick, you know, I guess, hit the company back if they don't hire quality developer advocates. I feel pretty passionate about this topic because I've really been annoyed by it.
This is the whole point of Devrel, though, isn't it? Just not being marketing and sales and just fully understanding the product. And you do 100% need to understand at least your own product in depth. And I think that this is where it becomes tricky, because you spend so much time also understanding your own product, and also knowing a little bit of many other products that can work well with your product, and you don't have the time to go deeper into each one of them. And at some point, you won't have in-depth knowledge of what you're talking about, and that's not a problem per se, but that's tough. That's a tough part of the job.
I just added a comment. I just said, and knowing your competitors' products. Because I do that at Appwrite. I use a lot of our competitors. Like I want to know their strengths and weaknesses. So if I ever get a question, I can tell you exactly what's happening and give you the most honest answer. And sometimes that's not going to be my own product.
Yeah, that's a really, really good comment. Especially, so I joined Meta, and then Meta is Meta, right? Quest devices, and but before then I was using a variety of products. So yeah, I agree with you, Dennis. Like knowing, in my opinion, like companies like Devrel, people like us, like just like you said, should be very versed on what the other tools do. Like in my case, like Android XR came out. I am experimenting with it. Vision Pro came out. I'm experimenting with Swift, and I think if we are in Devrel, developer advocacy, we're at a very special position because other people, like in products, they cannot do that. They can't really be talking about the competitors because it doesn't look good. But as a Devrel, we get like a special. This is the special treatment because you do need that. You do need that dev knowledge of what the market is doing so that you can advise people better. So yeah, I think, and this might be too much, but if you're working from 9 to 5 and that's all you do throughout the day, like I think that's just going to get you somewhere, right? Like for us and developer in general, you need to have side projects. Like that's another thing, and that might be like addition to this, but to me, like ever since I started having side projects has been like the best thing that I ever done. Having different projects, things in GitHub, and then playing with different technologies. That is what's really going to separate you from that other Devrel that we were talking about. You want to be like this Devrel, and then advise people with the right tools and the right technologies and have more experience.
So do you have more side projects or more domains owned?
Yeah, that's a different conversation. The domain and don't do anything about it. I done that, and then I'm advising against it. Make sure that you do something with it.
This can open up to a whole new episode because I don't know how many domains Nimrod has, but I think we are talking in hundreds. We are talking like in bundles of hundreds. So okay.
I feel better. I think I have like 16, and I keep renewing them. That's the problem, is they just keep auto renewing for like $12 or $20 a year. I need to.
Yeah, they say because if you stop paying, you admit that you failed that project. So
right.
you prefer
that's
to
literally
pay
it.
That
it's like cutting a
$20.
stock. Just take your losses and go. But I can't do that. One day I'll do it, even though it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
I love what Dilmer said, by the way. Sorry, Francesco. I just wanted to add on to something you said, because you mentioned knowing the competitors' products and using them and recommending them. One of the things that I said when I was interviewing at Appwrite to our CEO Eldad was, there's going to be times where I'm going to need to critique the product. I'm not here advocating for the product itself. I'm advocating on the behalf of our user too. And I made that very clear, and I love how open he was about that. And that is why I believe a lot of developers love developer advocates. I believe, actually, by the way, a history lesson, the first developer advocate was at Apple, like officially. I might have that wrong, but I believe that was like the original form of it. But that also means you're the trusted source by your customers too. A customer from a sales rep expects a pitch of the product, where a developer advocate, I will listen and then I'll give that feedback and critique my own product. And I always needed that freedom. And I like that you said that, because you're not just advocating for your company. If you were purely a marketing person, then yeah, you would be, but that's not the case with what we do.
Yes, I just want to give my own perspective about this, who should not be into Devrel. I think that it's kind of easy and hard. So this is my take, is that if you like to work with people, then probably Devrel is for you. If you don't like to work with people and you just like to code, which is nothing wrong with that, probably this could make your Devrel role a bit hard. Like if you only want to code, and probably you can try a different path, a different career. But if you like to enjoy at least some people, at least the developers, then maybe you can be in Devrel. Great. So let's keep talking about the bad parts, because I want to know from you if you ever experienced some stress or even burnout in the Devrel? So not especially, you can talk also about coding, but especially in working in developer relations, if you ever faced some stress. And if you didn't have any stress at all, we can go to the next question.
I can speak to that. Hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble. But yeah, I mean, it's just life, right? Like you're doing. For me, I done content creation for for a year. I would wake up and then work on videos mentally. Sometimes I can work on a video. Sometimes you cannot work on a video because it's just like writing a book. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it. So, anyways, like working on videos for about a year, then you have a job now, right? Like your dynamics are going to change. Now it's not just doing pre-recording videos. Now you're going to be doing talks, and it's interesting because I talked to Francesco. Francesco was doing talks, and he was pretty public about it on social media, of like when his first talk was, and so I got really inspired by that work. So I was really stressed when I was invited to go to MIT Reality Hack, and everybody saw me, like I was like super smiley, and nobody knows what's happening in people's life, right? Like people look at you and thinks, oh yeah, this is a guy in social media, he's like having a fun, but life is difficult, right? Like you have problems that it's not everything is not pretty. It's hard. But yeah, I was there. I was part of the hackathon, and then when we go to there was a big amphitheater, like a big theater, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people in there waiting, and I was one of the ones who had to do a talk. So doing public social media, you type it and then you pre-record, it's easy, and then now you're doing public talks, which you have to be okay with, right? Because you're doing developer relations, but that's something that I never done. So I think I was stressed. I had to talk in front of so many people, and they expected the best of me. And I remember sitting in the front row, and there was a guy next to me, was from Puerto Rico. I'm from Venezuela. And he's like, Dilmer, tú tienes esto, tú puedes, you get this. And it was like the best thing ever. But then I go up, and then a couple of organizers from IT start talking. And then I go up, and I remember like talking to Francesco and looking at other people, and focus on somebody that really is smiling at you, or like, looking at you in a good, positive way, and focus on the good thing, right? Like these are people that are there for you. So anyways, I just started talking, and I'm like, why was I so worried about it? Like I thought that was negative, like, oh, it's stressful and it's hard. But then, so always like think about the positive side of, if Devrel is hard, there's public speaking, there's some other things, there's always going to be something. So now the next time I'm probably gonna feel nervous, but those things that I thought were like going to be hard, like they're becoming easier and easier with time. So yeah, thank you, Francesco, for your advice before I did that. So
I mean, I do agree with Dilmer, but I mean, burnout, I don't really have time for that. I have work to do. Fran, were you going to say something?
Like this approach by Sabrina, and of course we're joking, of course, but yes, and I think that especially if you, I don't know, because I can understand having burnout, like if you are isolated in coding, but like if you're doing it in Devrel, I don't know, maybe you are in the wrong company, maybe you are doing this in the wrong environment, maybe, because if you're working with people, I don't know, it should be still stressful, but not that kind of that isolated stress. I don't know. That's just my point of view. But yes, Dennis, something from you? Yeah, sorry, Sabrina.
I like that quote, by the way. I don't have time for burnout. That actually makes a lot of sense, because I've had that too, where it's like, I don't have like, so to me, it's the question of how do you stay motivated? I'm like, I don't really need to stay motivated. It's like shit just needs to be done. Sorry for language on this channel, but you don't you don't have the time to think about it, and you're just like, I just gotta get it done. Like that's it. Like the more you have time to think about it, the more you're gonna overthink it, and you just gotta jump into it. So I don't know, that just resonated with me.
I was kind of kidding, but sometimes it really is, sometimes just
Yeah.
like you gotta suck it up.
Yep. The stressful parts, the video aspect of it, I have that too, where there's some weeks where I just do not I'm just not camera ready. Like it's not like I can sit behind my computer and code for an hour. Like I can do that, but when it comes to video, there's a mood that I have to be in. My day has to be separated into a filming day. Like I always let my boss Tessa know, hey, I'm filming. I don't, unless like the place is burning down, I'm not going to respond to messages. And I kind of need to go through that. But it's just interesting because a lot of times your mood, and this makes me sound like a baby here, but sometimes if I'm not on the mood, I just can't film because I can't jump on camera and be smiley and cheery when I'm feeling like crap myself. But you pull together through it, but it's definitely a challenge. And the staring at somebody in the audience thing, I've done that. There's always a few suckers in there that I kind of call out.
I completely agree with you, Dennis. And really, it's about getting in when you push yourself too much to complete something, right? Because maybe a big video, a big project, maybe you get that burnout, but it's really about knowing your limits, knowing when it's time to rest. Sometimes we need to, get a deadline done. And I feel like maybe this is when I felt the most exhausted, just pushing through like maybe 12 hours a day. But at the end, you always get that time to rest again and feel up. And you got to do that for yourself. I think it's also knowing your own limits there in a way. And you can easily get burned out in any job. But definitely, I feel like because of the nature of having to do so many things, it may be easier to do that in Devrel if you're not, if you don't pay attention to your day.
Thank you, Sabrina. And yeah, Dennis, do you want to add anything? Or
I think I added based on the comments. I just kind of ride the wave. I let you all answer first, and then I just pick and choose points.
Perfect. So we wanted to try to keep this event for 1 hour, and it seems that we're already there, almost there. So, but before we leave, I would like to have any of you to share like something specific that you really like your favorite part of being Devrel. So let's start to end this in a positive way. So something that, I don't know, you really liked about getting a Devrel role, or a specific event, or a specific video, or something like that. So if the first things that comes up in your mind, and then we can wrap up. I really, really enjoyed this event. Yeah.
Maybe I can go first. And so many things that I feel like Devrel is able to provide. And really, like, if you're into Devrel and you're in the audience and you want to get into it, please do, because there's so many aspects that you can branch into once you're in the role. And besides just like coding and getting to see stuff flourish and talking about it, I feel like also the amount of opportunities that I get, especially from abroad, especially because I'm in Brazil, I'm not in the US, I can't go in person to the office. But because this skill set that I'm creating, it's very scarce. Not a lot of people can do like all these different things, writing, creating, recording videos. You really gotta be into it in a way to, make this a career. And because that happens, that opens up lots of opportunities for me that I otherwise would not get, especially remote, especially, in another country. So definitely, I feel like this line of career, because, it has its ups and lows. It's kind of difficult to get into, but at the same time, this is what makes it a very good opportunity for you if you like this kind of stuff. And you want to, I don't know, receive more opportunities, maybe work with people that you admire at startups that you like the product and stuff like that. So those are my final thoughts.
No, those are great, Sabrina. I think Sabrina said it all, but I think that the part that I really enjoy is, I think building, there's a unique skill that we're able to get, which is prototyping, right? Like all across. So you're very familiar with so many different technologies. And that's pretty unique. Like no many people can go in and start a project and build a mini prototype and then record a video, write about it, and then have a marketing strategy to put it in social media, know who to talk to. So that's like a great opportunity. But the thing that I really, really enjoy is like being able to go to very special events, and the companies that you're working as a Devrel. In my case, I'm working for Meta, so it's an amazing opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of such a big company, and not only because it's a big company, but because they have the trust in you. They know that you know the skills, you know you're well versed, and the great thing about it is like it's the same you that you were before. You just a different title, but you get to work with so many people that and can help a lot of people in many ways. So I'm like really excited to go to a Game Developer Conference, which is coming. We have Gamescom coming. We have so many different events that in a million years I didn't think I was going to be able to afford myself. So now you have that opportunity to do that as well.
So I think for me, being a developer advocate, one of the best things is that you're going to become the best version of yourself, I think. One of the things that my manager told me at my last company was you either sink or swim. You're either going to fail or you're going to be insanely good after this. And I thought that was, to me, it was really inspiring because I like that tough love sometimes, and it just the way you need to communicate with me. And I don't really know any developer advocates that really didn't have their career take off from this point. You pick up so many skills. You work with so many people. As Sabrina said, you're working with this company. You're having to represent everything that you're kind of dealing with, and with that, you're opening all these doors. Whether you want to go into marketing or public speaking, whatever you're doing from that point on, it's just going to take you on this launch pad if you do it correctly. So if you can actually properly do that, it's going to open up opportunities because you're public facing, and that public spotlight is going to force you to always check yourself too. Like when you're just a developer in a dark room and you're doing your own thing, you may not have that critique other than people just reviewing your PRs. But here, anything you do, it's a public fail. And that's what my manager said. You either sink or swim. And anytime I do something, if I don't like the outcome, I criticize myself and I review it, and I also get other people criticizing it. And I'm always forced to get better at my public speaking. My courses have to be better. My code, people will comment on it and I have to fix. So I just think that there's just so much upwards momentum, and it's going to absolutely, I like to use the term baptism by fire. Like, you're going to get thrown into this. I think if you're fortunate enough to even be in this position, like you have to be pretty good to even get to this point. It's just going to open up so many doors. It's like a lot of people that will have, they'll have like a public job, for example, let's say in the White House. When they leave the White House in the US, they end up going into media or going into some kind of consulting because everybody knows them at that point, and they were able to prove themselves on the public stage, and their career is set from that point on. So I think using that as an example of, being the best version of yourself is just going to force you into that.
Thank you, Dennis. For me, it has been really a great, let's say, to switch from content creation so naturally to Devrel for another company, and then Nimrod reached out. We already had a talk similar to this, so really it was great for me. Like this really natural transition to this role that I really, really like. So this is from me, and thank you so much. Nimrod, would you like to say something before we wrap up?
I'll just say that, I don't know. I'll put it that way. I don't have any insight about what's the best part of doing Devrel because I'm not a Devrel myself. I'm probably the biggest imposter here in this call, but I can testify on what are the best parts that I do appreciate about working with Devrels. And I think I very much resonate with the story Dennis shared of his conversation between him and Eldad, his CEO, where he will criticize and will actually represent the developer community within the company. And I think those are the most interesting conversations, the most impactful conversations many times. But unfortunately, these conversations are never, almost very rarely, or never seen publicly, right? And this is like the part of Devrel that is not public. And I think this is one of the most magical parts of it, at least as someone who's working with Devrels. And I wish that at some point there could be a way for it to be be more public. Whenever talking about competition, I like to say that, you know, both the CEO or the owner of Coca-Cola and the owner of Pepsi, they probably sleep very well at night, you know. And it's true for a lot of different markets, that the market's just big enough for having more than just one company in it. But unfortunately, these kind of like tough and honest conversations are not happening in the public space, but I think they're the most impactful ones. And if you are a Devrel and you're hearing that story, I think that if you bring that more into your company, this is one of the greatest way for you to make a change and actually be good at your job. And if you're in a workplace that doesn't tolerate that, then my hot take is think again whether you're working for the right workplace or not. So that is my, let's say, closing statement.
Thank you so much, Nimrod. And as usual, all these events, they are offered for free to you by Daily Dev, so you can check daily.dev. They are really cool community of developers there. We have a squad of Devrels. If you want, I can invite all of you, and we can spark new conversations, share stuff, learn something new, staying up to date. So this is really something that I really love, having like these really open events where we can have this conversation. I really, really admire all of you. I met all of you except for Dilmer. So Dilmer, you are the next one that I really want to meet in person. And let's see if we can make it happen soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Really, thank you so much for bringing your real experiences here. Really admire all of you here. And yeah, so I think we can wrap up today. We went a bit overrun of 1 hour. I don't know how this is actually possible, but we have been very, very quick. So thank you so much. And thank you so much also in the chat. Thank you so much, Daphne, other people here who joined. And yeah, so see you next month. We are about to organize this another one soon. And yeah, bye everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.